Hello guys, and welcome to Hankins Custom Rifles and another episode of Hanks TV. Today what we're going to talk about are Thompson Center Encores, and I've got a customer that sent me 3 of them. Now these belong to 3 different people, but the one guy that has bought a couple of guns from me in the past sent all 3 of these in to me to be fixed or converted over to a large rifle primary ignition system. We talked about the system that he wants to go with, and I've come up with a new thing here that we're going to start talking about today. I've got it made, and it's going to be a system that'll fit a lot of different rifles and hopefully might possibly be a fix for a lot of guns out there that's been done by other people that's got different breech plugs in them, or in the worst case scenario, let's say somebody bored the hole too deep. I know that's been done a couple of times, and guys have called me up and said, can I make a special breech plug that's a little bit longer because they bored the hole too deep and the shoulder's off and the headspace ain't right, and blah blah blah. But to make a long story short, I made several of these plugs, and I made them about 100 thousandths longer than they needed to be, so that whoever installs them into the gun, if you've got a lathe, you could go in and shave off the head of the plug and bring it to the length that it needs to be, or you could go into the rifle itself and set it in a little bit deeper so that your shoulder, or where the plug bottoms out, will be in the right place. Now this particular plug here does not have a shoulder on it. Some of them that I made that uses this system will have a shoulder, but this is a plug for Thompson Center Encore that another guy has been building for years. He's put out a lot of these guns, and I've converted a bunch of them over to my system. I got these 3 guns in from the last guy, and he wanted me to convert it over to my system, but I didn't have a plug that would fit it. And through a little bit of measuring and research, I found out that the guy that builds these guns on the Encore frames uses several different kinds of plugs, so I just didn't have one made that would fit it. So I've made some now that'll fit it. This is the plug that we're going to install into these 3 guns, and it's a little bit longer than it needs to be. You can see where I've left plenty of room out here where the hex is at. The guy could go in and shave that off in a lathe if he wanted to, or he could just bore a little deeper into the gun barrel itself to where this shoulder right here, this surface, is what's going to seal in the gun. That's what I'm going to do. I'm going to leave these plugs the same length that they are, but I'm going to modify the barrel so that they're all the same. I'm going to leave all 3 of these plugs the same length. Now here's another example of this guy's plug, and it's a Thompson Center Encore plug, I think, that they have taken and modified and put in some type of a nipple extension here, and then what they're using is a 30-30 case. And after 2 or 3 shots with the 30-30 case, you're going to do a case head separation right there. I don't know if you guys can see that, but if you've got 55 or 60 grains of smokeless powder in there, and that case head separates like that on you when you shoot this gun and that thing separates, you're going to get a face full of pressure and some hot gas. I can see daylight through that case head, and this is a 30-30 case head that slides up over this. And in theory, I think, is what this guy's thinking, when you close this down and you close it, set the headspace, that you're pushing tight enough against this cartridge and this little extension that he's made here that goes in these breech plugs. You're pushing that tight enough to stop any leakage. Well, you can't. If it was tight enough to close the leakage down, you wouldn't be able to close the brake action on the Encore gun barrels. So that's not working. I've got a handful of his plugs here that I've converted, and people call me all the time and want to convert them over, and I tell them to send them in and I'll do the conversion. So what we're going to do now is I'm going to show you these 3 guns, what we've got. We're going to take some measurements on the breech plugs that are in them and try to figure out what we need to do to make this work. Shouldn't be too hard. I think we can do it. And I'm going to go ahead and get these 3 guns knocked out so they can get sent back to the customer and they can hunt with them next season. So I'm going to get right back with you guys here and show you these guns. Okay guys, here's our 3 guns that we're going to be working on. This is how they were sent to me. One gun doesn't have a forearm. The other one's got a forearm that's pretty well beat up. This one here looks like it's in the best shape of the 3 rifles. But the guys want me to fix these, clean them up, and I'm going to sand bead blast them, glass bead blast them, clean off this rust, and I'm going to try to fix these things back up to where they're a decent rifle again. I know some guys build these guns and they're tools and they work with them. And if you work with them, they're going to get scratched up and beat up, whatever. You know, it's just a tool. So I try to take a little better care of my tools than this, even if it's a gun or what it might be. But I understand things happen. This one here looks like it had a stud that got pulled out of it, and they looks like they tried to fix it with some epoxy glue, and that didn't work, so they just drilled a new hole. This one here looks like this front stud kept breaking loose, so they MIG welded it on there. Probably an emergency fix, and they just said, well, let's just MIG weld it on there. So any of you guys that's ever had wonders about whether or not you can TIG weld these on in place, it looks like you can even MIG weld them on. This one back here has been TIGged on. That was probably done first, and then it didn't hold very well, so then they fixed it and MIG welded it. So I'm going to go ahead and take these apart, start getting some measurements on them. You can see by looking at the breech area that are kind of black. That's the blowback that they're getting from these systems, and I don't think it would be very nice that every time you shoot your gun you get a puff of smoke or you hear this gas fizzing out in front of your face. It would be kind of annoying to me. So this one here looks like it's the worst. It's got the most black on it. I'm trying to run the camera with one hand and move other things with the other hand, so bear with me. But look at how black that is in there. That's just a lot of blow by. So we're gonna fix these. We're gonna clean them up, try to put them back as best we can. And I'm gonna go ahead, disassemble them off camera, knock the pins out, take some measurements on the breech plugs and the depths of the bores and stuff like that. Now I do know that the plugs that are in these guns here are not the same plugs as the plugs that I have taken out of a lot of other guns that this guy has built. So that was the reason that I built the new plugs, was for these 3 guns right here. I'll knock the pins out and I'll get back with you guys in just a minute. Okay guys, I'm going to give you a quick look at gun number 1 that I just started taking apart. And you can see down inside the action of this Encore, I think you can see that, how dark and black that is. That's a bunch of carbon from the leakage from this ignition system. I've got a couple of Q-tips that I'm just going to wipe it across the face of this thing and look and see what comes out of there. That it's an awful lot of crud leakage to build up in there, and that gets down in your firing pin, causes your firing pins to freeze up, causes triggers to malfunction. Some guns that have a safety, of course the Encores don't have a safety, but if it had a safety, you'd be looking at safety malfunctions possibly. So I guess I'll take the stock off of this action too, and I'll completely clean this gun before I send it back to the customer. Try to get it back to him as nice as we can. But this is gun number 1. Absolutely ridiculous here what we've got for leakage. So if we come over here and look at the barrel that took off of it, you can see the lug is pitted. It's rusted pretty good. The spring that was up here, I couldn't even get it out. It was carboned up and just corroded up into there to where I had to put a screw into the spring and pull the spring out. That's how bad it was stuck in there. So your locking lugs wasn't getting near the spring pressure that's required to hold your barrel locked tight in place to get good accuracy. That's one thing with Encores. If you've got bad locking lugs and your barrel can float around, it don't lock back up in the same place every time, you'll suffer on accuracy. So that's one thing we're going to fix here also, clean all that up. I'm going to take a Dremel tool with a little whiz wheel blade on it, and I'm going to cut these spot welds and take both of these studs off, because I have to do that in order to get it in my machine. I know there's one guy out there for sure that absolutely hates Dremel tools and gun work, but he says you can't let friends use a Dremel tool on guns, and I think it's ridiculous to say that, but Dremel tools are sometimes your best friend when it comes to doing work like this, and we've got to get in there and cut these little studs off. So I'm going to go ahead and cut those, get them off the barrel. And I've got a little bag here, and I'm going to just number them 1, 2, and 3. Everybody's parts, whatever it comes off of. This is all the parts for the gun number 1, goes in this bag. I've labeled the action number 1, so when I get ready to put it back together, I can get bag number 1 with action number 1, barrel number 1, put all the parts back together. Another thing I want to show you is on these Encore barrels, and I've always thought it was kind of ridiculous, but people did it anyway. They use an 11/16 plug on these Encore barrels. And when they bore the hole in there and thread it, they bore in to your scope base screw holes. So this punch right here goes all the way through there. You can just put it all the way through. So you've got a hole completely through that barrel to where that punch is in there. Okay, your next scope base screw has threads in it inside that barrel. I don't think you can see them, but there's threads that's under that section, and there can't be more than 15 thousandths of material between the bottom of that scope base screw and the thread of the breech plug. Personally, I just kind of think that's unacceptable, and that's why I use a 9/16 plug. I use a really short plug on my conversions. That ASG plug that's available, that is a very bad choice in my opinion for a plug. It's way too long, and it's a 5/8 18 coarse thread. You need to use a fine thread whenever possible. So look towards converting these things with my 5/8 24 thread with a large rifle magnum primer, and you can use your factory ejector if it's got one for the 45/70. These barrels were made for muzzle loader barrels, so therefore they don't have an extractor, and that's the reason, another reason why I made these new plugs for these type of barrels. You don't need an extractor to get the primer out. We're going to do that a different way, but we're going to try to clean these up, salvage all 3 of these guns, and hopefully make them to where they're a reliable hunting rig again. So I'm going to go on, move towards gun number 2, and I'll get back with you guys. Easy as pie. Those people out there that say not to use Dremel tools on gun work are the people that don't know how to use a Dremel tool. It's not that hard. You just got to get in there and do it. You know, there's nothing like making an excuse on why you can't do something. It's a lot easier to just get in there and get it done. Quit making excuses. Okay guys, I took a little piece of emery cloth and sanded that barrel. I used the Dremel tool, the improper tool, to grind off all the weld that was built up on that barrel, and then I just polished it down a little bit with the emery cloth. Now yes, there's a few little gouges here and there, but them things are micro. You can't even hardly tell they're there. They will be covered up with the gun stock, and I'm going to be welding over top of them again, so it doesn't really matter for this particular case. If this was a brand new build, it might be a little different story, but what we're doing here is just trying to salvage somebody else's junk. So barrel number one is ready to take some measurements on and figure out what we got to do to make this new breech plug fit. So I'm going to go on and take the rest of the guns apart. If there's anything interesting, I may chime in with the camera and show you what's going on. If not, I'll get back to you when we've got them all three apart. Okay guys, encore number 2 is disassembled, and this one's got just as much leakage in it and black soot in the action as the first gun, if not more. And like I said, this can cause problems with your firing pin, parts that's got to move down inside the action, springs and stuff. They just get so gummed up and corroded with carbon and oil buildup and just slime, whatever you want to call it, that the things won't even hardly function anymore. I'm just going to take my finger and wipe across the front of this one, and look at what comes out of there. That thing is just dirty. So I'll clean that one up pretty good too. I'm going to clean them all up, bead blast them. This one here is also got the little studs TIG welded to the barrel. Just a couple little TIG welds there. Looks like they've held pretty good. And we're going to go grind them off again with the Dremel tool. And I'll get back with you guys when we take apart encore number 3. Okay guys, we got rifle number 3 taken apart, and these little lugs have also been welded on there, TIG welded, and I can see some little cracks in every one of the welds. There's a crack in the weld. Now a lot of times when you're TIG welding stainless steel, if you pull away from the weld too quick, it's going to crack. Or if you let off on your foot pedal too fast, it's going to crack. You want to stay on your weld with your tungsten. You want to let off your gas off your foot pedal really slow so that the metal has time to cool without cracking. And then you want to stay on that little weld until your post flow has stopped flowing, so you've got argon flowing around your weld so you don't get a bubble in it, which is called porosity. But from the looks of these welds, I don't think they're on there by very much, and I'm just going to try to break them right off. And that one there broke right off. Let's see how this second one's going to come off. It was held on by a little bit more, but just not quite enough weld on there. We're going to fix that the next time around. I'm going to weld them back on like they were before, so that we don't ever have to worry about them coming loose. Now this barrel here is the only barrel that had a breech plug in it. The breech plug is still in there. You can see it sitting up in there. I'm going to go ahead and get that out, and I'll be right back with you. Okay guys, what I'm going to do before I pull that breech plug out is I'm going to take a measurement, and I want to see just exactly how deep that breech plug is in this barrel. Now I've already measured all of these a couple of weeks ago when I decided to take on this job and make the breech plugs for it. I came up with a different measurement on every barrel. So what that's telling me is this one here is 159 thousandths from the face of this barrel to the head of that breech plug. And with all three of them being different, that's what made me come to the conclusion that I couldn't make a breech plug and just send it out as a direct replacement for these barrels. Because the guy that builds these guns, he don't build them all the same. Tolerances were too far off to just make a plug and send it to everybody and say, hey, we got an easy fix. So I can send you a plug. You can do the modifications yourself to make it fit correctly. You can send me the barrel and I can put the plug in for you, and I'll do the modifications to make it fit correctly. Now there's two ways you could do this. You could modify the barrel, or you could modify the new plug that I'm going to send or build for this gun. Personally, to me, I want to modify the barrel to fit the plug, so that if somebody ever calls me up and needs to order another plug, I could just send it to them. We don't have to modify another plug to a measurement that we don't remember what it was, because we did this work 2-3 years ago, or somebody sold the gun to Joe Blow down the road and he don't know what the measurement was of the plug that was in it, or whatever the case may be. Try to keep them all the same, and we don't have to worry about that. So this is barrel number 3. What I'm going to do is get barrel 1 and 2. I'm going to screw the breech plug in tight. I'm going to measure the depth from the face of the barrel to the face of the plug and come up with the differences there and see what we got. Okay guys, we're going to measure barrel number 2 with that same breech plug that was in barrel number 3, and I'm coming up with 149 thousandths. 149 thousandths and 159 thousandths. That's 10 thousandths difference between those two barrels. Okay, this is barrel number 1, and the depth on that plug looks like 155 thousandths. So we got 149, 155, and 159. So we got a extreme spread of 10 thousandths. That probably explains why the one breech plug, the one gun, keeps blowing case heads off, because there's just so much room, there's so much headspace gap, 10 thousandths of a headspace gap, that it's just going to blow. I mean, that's like having 10 thousandths headspace in your centerfire rifle cartridge chamber. You ain't going to get but 2 or 3 reloadings out of your brass, and you're going to have a case head separation. So we got 10 thousandths difference between the 3 barrels. That's pretty bad. And I've got a handful of breech plugs over here that all came from this same guy, and we're going to measure these breech plugs up and see what they come out to be. Okay guys, I've got 4 breech plugs that were all sent to me out of different guns from different customers to be fixed from the same guy that built these guns. Now the 3 that were just sent to me by the one customer, he only sent me 1 breech plug. So we only have 1 plug from him to compare, but we're going to compare these plugs that have been coming out here of my shop. Okay, we're going to compare these breech plugs that's come out of his shop. This one measures 1.587, and I'm going to write all these down later. This one measures 1.608. That one measures 1.603. And last but not least, 1.6025. So I'm going to write those measurements down and see what we got. Okay guys, I think we found the problem why we've got a lot of these guns that are leaking so bad and blowing these case heads apart within 2 or 3 shots. And that's what this guy told me, that these 30-30 cartridge cases were only good for 2 or 3 shots before the head would separate, and then they get all this gas blowing back. Well, the bad thing is, you never know when it's going to separate, and you can't put a new cartridge case in every time you shoot the gun. That would get kind of expensive, and you just be throwing away money and always wondering, is it going to blow up on me or not? So here's our measurements that I've came up with. the bore in the barrels, the first barrel measured 155 thousandths. The second one 149. The third one 159. So we've got an extreme difference here of 10 thousandths in depth on these bores. So 10 thousandths is definitely enough to cause this problem without a doubt. If you got a 10 thousandths headspace difference between one and the next, you're going to have leakage issues. If we measure the 4 breech plugs that I've got, that's a big difference. Now we're really seeing the big difference. We've got one plug that measured 1.602 and a half. We got one that measured 1.602. So we've got 2 plugs within a half a thousandths of each other. But it's the other 2 plugs that really throw in the kicker there. We got one plug that's 1.608 and one plug that's only 1.5865 for a difference of 21 and a half thousandths. So if you order a plug, let's say the guy builds you a gun and he bores your hole this deep and he uses this plug, you've got 30 thousandths difference when you order the next plug from him. And you call him up and you say, hey, what's his name? I need a new plug for my gun. He sends you one. Well, it could either be 30 thousandths too long or 30 thousandths too short. You know, 30 thousandths too long and you're sitting there trying to close your gun and it won't close and you're thinking what's going on. And you know, unless you're a machinist or you've got some tools to do some work with, cutting one of these plugs down 30 thousandths and keeping it all square could be a pretty hard job for somebody that don't have the tools. Okay, we'll go the other scenario. He sends you a breech plug that's 30 thousandths too short, and of course you put your little 308 primer module on here, or 3030 primer module, and you slip it up on your breech plug and you close it up and it closes just fine. You shoot it and boom, you get all this smoke in your face and your action turns black and it burns the bottom of your scope all up and stuff. I mean, I've seen it and I've been there years ago when I shot the old 209 primers and the old percussion caps. You put a brand new scope on your gun, you sight it in, you shoot it a few times and it's already starting to turn green and black, and you know, within a couple of days that stuff really gets nasty and turns green on you. So we've came up with a much better way to do things. The large rifle Magnum primers have changed the way we look at this sport, but at the same time you've got to have a system that will seal. I offer that system and it works very well. Been building it for practically 10 years now. It's been copied by many, but it's been duplicated by nobody. So if you want the original Hankins ignition system, you can call me. You can buy it from me for the same price as you can buy it from the copycats, and I'll put it in for you if you need to, or you can put it in yourself. I'll send you a little blueprint on how it goes in your gun barrel. And or if you've got a friend that's a machinist or gunsmith down the road, he wants to put it in, that's fine with me. Just call me and I'll send you the parts. But anyway, we've narrowed down the problems to these Encore barrels. Next time we turn the camera on, I'm going to have the 3 plugs installed into the barrels. Headspace is going to be right. They're going to be back onto the action, and maybe we'll take them out and shoot them. Maybe we'll just fire a shot for a test fire. I don't have scopes or bases for any of these things, so mounting a scope and sighting it in, testing it for accuracy is probably not going to happen. We're just fixing it. If they shot decent when he sent them to me, they're going to shoot even better when I send them back. So let's get on with it. Next time you see me, guys, I'll have 3 complete Encore barrels ready to go back to their customers. I have all 3 of these Thompson Center Encores put back together, cleaned up fairly well, and ready to go back to the customer. All I need to do is take each one of them outside and do a test fire shot with it, and I'm sure that that's going to be just fine. I'm not testing these guns for accuracy, so if they shot good when he sent them to me, they'll shoot good when I send them back. You can see here where I took and re-welded the lugs that hold the forearm on. This particular gun here in the middle, they didn't send a forearm with it, so I don't have a forearm to put back on there. The other 2 were complete rifles. I did come up with a barrel band or a ramrod ferrule, whatever you want to call it there, and I went ahead and put one on there. But the little lugs are welded on now, so they won't come back off. And I put a good little bead weld on there instead of just a small tack. We welded them on pretty good. Now I want to show you the little breech plug system that I put in here. So let me get repositioned and I'm going to explain to you how this breech plug works and the advantages of it and the disadvantages. Okay guys, this breech plug that I put in this gun, I designed these for the Thompson Center Encores, or maybe some other guns out there that might have an application for that was made without an extractor. So regardless if you have an Encore that shoots a 209 primer or a gun that's set up somehow shooting a large rifle Magnum primer with a module system, or some other type of cartridge case that carries the primer, you had to have some type of a tool to reach in there and pop it out or pry it out, or a pair of pliers, or the little tool that they sell to pop them 209 primers out. I don't really know what you call it, but it's got two little fingers on it that pops them primers out of there. So this plug was made to kind of fix some of these guns that were either done wrong or they just wanted to change the ignition system or whatever. So I had several of these guns here at one time. I took a series of measurements. You guys saw that yesterday on the whiteboard back there, and I came up with a total overall length, and I made my plug just a little bit longer, so I've still got a little bit of leeway for fixing guns that might have been bored a little bit deeper than any of these that I had here on the bench yesterday. I also made it a little bit longer so that just in case you had a gun that had a little bit of gas cutting in there on the shoulder, you know, once you get a little gas cut right there on the shoulder where the breech plug seals, if you've got any gas cutting there at all, you have to go in and recut that shoulder and get it good and square again, or it's just going to keep gas cutting, and it will get worse and worse until it's eventually has ruined the barrel. So I came up with this little breech plug, and we've got a screw-in module. This is a little bolt. This is a grade 9 aircraft bolt. It's a 5/16 12-point socket head, and I've bored it, drilled it, put a primer in here. This is what one looks like without the primer in it. And I'm going to tell you guys that this was not my idea. This idea originated from a guy. His name's Phil Justless, and he put this idea on Doug's message board about 4 or 5 years ago probably, and it didn't go over very well. The guys on the message board didn't like it. They all said, "You're crazy. You got to use a socket, screw these modules in and out." Well, it might not be the fastest way to go as far as reloading the gun. It's not like you're just going to flip it down, module flies out, you put another module in, and you're ready to go. This, you do have to unscrew this module every time. But we've got another advantage here. We don't have a bushing. There's no bushing in that plug. You're getting 100% ignition from the flame of this large rifle Magnum primer. We've got an 82 thousandths hole going up through this bolt. So from the testing that's been done by Phil and a few other guys that have now decided that this is a good way to go, they have learned that it takes less gunpowder to reach the same velocity. So instead of shooting a 55 grain charge, you can shoot 50 grains to get the same velocity. I think it's a great way to go because regardless whether you use this in a bolt action type of gun, the Remington 700, the Savage, you could use it in an old muzzle loader that doesn't have locking lugs, because this is your locking lugs. These threads are what locks everything up. All you need to do is screw the module in, bring the bolt up to the module, cock your firing pin, and bam, you've got a good ignition. With a bolt gun, you have to remove the bolt every time you know, you got to take the bolt completely out, reach up in there and unscrew this module. But that's not really all that difficult either, because Phil came up with a good idea, and he used a little extension with a little 1/4 inch drive socket on here. This is a 5/16 12 point, and he put a magnet in the socket, which I've done the same thing here. So you can put the magnet socket on there, you pull that out and it'll stick right in the socket. When you're ready to put another one in, you just swap it out, screw your new one in, and you're ready to fire your next shot. Now with a break action, if it was me, I would load the gun on an empty module, fire it, reload it. Now crack it open, screw the module out, put the new one in. You won't lose any gunpowder. There'll be no safety issues whatsoever. I know a lot of guys that's using this system already, and they're going ahead and putting the live module in and then loading the gun. As long as you don't pull the hammer back on your gun, you would be safe. But in my opinion, I don't see any reason why you couldn't do it with the gun cocked open, pointing down, put your module in. You're not going to lose any gunpowder. So let's pick up one of these guns here off of the bench, and I'll show you how this works. So we just crack it open. Okay, let's pretend the gun is loaded now, and you're ready to put your module in. I've got one here with a primer in it. Let's see. Here it is. I'll take it out of here. Okay, so we've got the modules in the little screwdriver or nut driver, whatever you want to buy. You can use, I would just go out and buy a little nut driver, put a magnet up in there, epoxy it in the right place, and then you just screw this into your gun. It's a little bit slower than a standard 209 primer or a large rifle primer module system. But now the gun is loaded. All right, you close it. You're ready to go. You can fire it, open it, take the module out, put a new one in. Pretty easy. So what you would do before you took it out is you would load your gun again. Okay, you're loading it, you got your bullet in, you put your ram rod down, blah, blah, blah. Now, you open it, take your little nut driver, and you pull your module out. You take this module and put it in your pocket. Of course, just like all the rest of the modules that I make, it's reusable. These steel modules, these are made out of grade 9 bolts. These things were hard to machine, took a lot of time and a lot of work to machine these things. But we was able to make them work, but they'll last. I would think these things will last forever, as long as you don't lose them. So that's pretty much it, guys, on the ignition system and how it works. So I guess we do got one more thing to talk about, and some of you guys are probably wondering, how do you put a primer in these bolts? Well, if you got a reloading press, I've made these little adapters that go right in your reloading press, and you'll just take your bolt and you'll slide it right into the adapter just like that. Put your primer in your reloader. You bring your ram down like you would if you was priming a rifle cartridge, and it'll put a primer right in this module. Now once you've shot the primer, it's very easy to just set it back up either in this little tool that I made, knock it out with a little 1/16 inch punch, and reprime it. These things will last over and over and over. So you can buy this little tool from me also. I've got them. I've made several. We got them on the shelf, ready to go. I've got a bunch of these plugs ready to go. I've literally got hundreds. I had to buy 25,000 of these bolts in order to get them. So I've got more of these things than I'll probably ever need. But if you guys really like this system and it works good, I'll have more than enough for everybody. I'm eventually going to get around to putting them on my website and offering it as a kit. I have made plugs for the large rifle. I have made plugs for the Hankins ignition system, the his. I've made plugs for the ASG guns. I've made plugs for the Encores. I've made plugs for my break opens. I have made plugs for the CVA Apex muzzleloader barrels. Those will all be discussed in another video at a later date. But for now, I just wanted to bring you guys a quick update on what's been going on here at Hankins Custom Rifles as far as new breech plugs have been being made and some new ideas that we're trying to release here. Now, I'm not going to try to take any of the credit for this system because Phil Justless is the man that thought of this. It's a very good idea. He put a lot of thought into it, tested it, and like I said, some people hated it. But everything that comes out that's new, somebody's always going to hate it. But sooner or later, you get one person on the bandwagon, you get another person on the bandwagon, you get another person on the bandwagon, and before you know it, you've got almost everybody on the bandwagon. And now they all love it. It's like my large rifle Magnum ignition system. They all hated it over on Doug's board until they saw that it worked better. Now they see it works better, and you've got Arrowhead Sporting Goods copying my system. You've got McWhorter Rifles that copied it. You've got Hart Rifles that has copied it. There's another guy on YouTube that's copied it. I mean, they've all copied it. I don't care. They can copy it all they want to. They still can't copy the original because I'm the guy that made it. But they all copy it, but they change it a little bit. They want to make a little dimensional change and make it look different. But it's the same principle. It all works the same way. And I'm all for building something that works. Let's get away from the leaky 209 primer systems and let's move on with the advancements in smokeless muzzle loading. You know, 20 years ago, 25 years ago, maybe even been longer than that, maybe 30 years ago, when you went out and bought a muzzle loader, the only thing you could buy was an old Thompson Center Hawkins with a hammer on the side, and you had a nipple and you put number 11 percussion caps on it. And we thought that was the best thing you could get in a muzzle loader, okay? Before that, it was flintlocks. Well, then we went up to night rifles, started making guns, and they started putting 209 primers in there. Man, we thought, man, that was the greatest thing there ever was. We threw our percussion caps away. Now it's time to throw the 209 primers away and get with the program, fellas, and start shooting these large rifle Magnum primers that was designed for shooting large amounts of smokeless rifle powder. Shotgun primers were never made to do that. But anyway, you've all heard me preach this sermon before. The 209 is obsolete. It's on its way out. The large rifle Magnum primer is superior. It's on its way in. So that's pretty much all I can tell you. I'm going to conclude this video now. I want to ask you all to subscribe to my YouTube channels. Give me that thumbs up on every one that you can. I mean, we work hard here to make the videos. They're not always the greatest videos. Sometimes I got to film them by myself, which I've had to do with this video. Didn't have my videographer here to help me. She had to do other things today. But we do work hard to try to satisfy our customers, and we're here to please. If you need us, you can call us. If I can help you, I will. And visit Hank's message board. That's hanksmessageboard.freeforums.net. Join that message board. Start asking questions. You can learn a lot on the board. We've got some great guys on there that know a lot of stuff. If you could take all the knowledge that we all have and put it into one place, it would probably explode. It couldn't contain it all. So a lot of knowledge on that message board. And we're open to new ideas. We're not stuck in the old world, and we're not haters. There's a lot of haters over on the other board that Well, y'all know what I'm talking about. You don't need to hear it. But anyway, thanks for watching this video. Give me a thumbs up, subscribe, and we'll see you next time.